Kylie, 3 minutes. Pull that mic real close and talk real big.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kylie Naidver, and I am a lifelong resident of Kerr County. I live in Bumblebee Hills, a working-class neighborhood located off Highway 39 in Hunt. Of the 33 homes in my little community, only 5 were untouched by the raging floodwaters of the Guadalupe River. The home where I live with my mom and sister was one of these 5. In the early hours of July 4th, my neighbors' homes were flooded with anywhere between a few inches to over 8 feet of water. By the grace of God, no one in Bumblebee Hills was seriously injured or lost their life that morning, but many homes were ruined, and we are now faced with the monumental task of rebuilding and resuming our everyday lives while bearing these new unseen scars of trauma. The only thing more powerful than the flood has been the outpouring of volunteers and community members who have taken it upon themselves to help us recover. Assistance and prompt guidance from our local government regarding our rebuilding efforts have been non-existent. I have met no local county officials in Hunt or in my neighborhood, nor have I encountered anyone from the state. Those of us impacted by this catastrophe are not asking for handouts. We're asking for a functioning government. Kerr County simply does not possess the infrastructure to handle this recovery on our own. The solution the county has proposed for dealing with the flood debris is incineration, a giant fire that will burn for months, doing nothing more than polluting our air. Isn't there a better way to handle this that won't result in breathing problems for a community that is already broken and hurting? Right now, it is primarily families and local volunteers who are the ones hauling debris to the dump and paying the fees for it. Survivors across the state of Texas cannot wait any longer for emergency relief. We need knowledgeable officials, debris removal, housing support, and mental health care. This community is in desperate need of educated assistance handling the enormous burden of this catastrophe. The individuals who experienced the flood, who are not full-time Kerr County residents, need help too. When my neighbor's home was flooded, she and her husband were in shock. My mom and I stepped in to help them begin the cleaning and recovery process in their home because that's what friends and neighbors do. We were all traumatized, but we did it anyway. Texans are showing up for each other every single day. Now it's time for our elected leaders to do the same. Please use the authority you already have to release emergency funds and make this session about flood recovery and nothing else. We can't do this alone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. State your name.
Katherine Fox.
Pull that over there real close.
Katherine Fox, born and raised in Kerr County, resident of Hunt.
I'm not sure it's on. They're working on it there real quick. Lights on. Try it now.
Katherine Fox.
There you go. I hear you.
Born and raised in Kerr County, resident of Hunt. In my 67 years, I've been through about 25 floods in Kerr County. A mark on our property of the 1932 flood was far surpassed this time. USGS has been out. They'll get the exact numbers to us soon, but a rough estimate is 50 feet on our property at the confluence of the Guadalupe River and Bumblebee Hills Creek. As we've seen prior in testimony, things just, our confidence has been shaken by the lack of coordination, chain of command glitches, and time taken to issue a code red, as well as the lack of the warning system and on that was discussed earlier. And what comes to my mind is a word that hasn't been brought up yet, and that is complacency, not just by our government, but by all of the residents who have not lived there as long as I have in many instances, and just decided that, you know, out of sight, out of mind. We haven't had any major floods for about 15 years, so let's just let the good times roll. And everybody started building along the river, especially during the COVID surge on our state. So, having established what we've already established today, 2025 is now the new benchmark. 1932 is out the window. And I would like to say that, or quote, Judge Rob Kelly in his testimony said, "This just was not forecast." As someone who's lived here for 67 years in this area, I would like to say that it was, but no one caught it. History shows that when the National Weather Service issues a flash flood watch and mentions a subtropical air mass could potentially stall out of the hill country, we all better set up and pay attention. We were warned, but in a roundabout way. We didn't pay attention. And here's what happened. Here's what we should be doing. Bring whatever you can to higher ground, including vehicles and boats, just like preparing for a hurricane. Stay vigilant. When it starts raining buckets and it doesn't stop for many hours, you form your own family watch, especially at night. Change your plans if you know that this is coming and you're not from the area, especially if you have extremely small children and elderly family members. Have an escape plan. Practice it. Yes, it's inconvenient, and yes, often nothing happens. Yet when I was a little girl, that is exactly what the community of Hunt did every time. Not just the camps, but everyone who lived along the river or a creek. We didn't have today's technology. And as it has been alluded to earlier, and even one person on your committee stated, no warning system is fail-proof. We braced for impact without technology just in case, and we managed many times to save lives and property. Finally, stricter building code and enforcement. Currently, FEMA only maps main river channels, and as we have had people mention earlier, creeks need flood gauges that go into the Guadalupe River. And in FEMA's plan,
Ms. Fox, kind of finish up.
Creeks are not factored in. If someone wants to build a house or a development by the confluence of a creek and a river, they're allowed to. Mother Nature humbled us. She reminded us that she is a force to be reckoned with.
Thank
We
you, ma'am.
must improve our flood plans to honor those who were lost and save lives in the future.
Good suggestions. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Sarah Stewart from Kerrville, Texas. Sometimes to move forward, it's important for us to look back. So I thank you for providing this opportunity, especially my rep, Wes Ferdell. So they don't build them like they used to. We've all said it. Maybe it's time we built them like they used to. I grew up in Tornado Alley, and we had civil defense sirens. Everyone knew that sound because they tested them monthly. They drilled once a year, all the way back to my great-grandparents' day. It was ingrained in us, and there was no cell phone required. If we want to prepare for a 500 years flood, then we need solutions that are going to be around for our children's children. Another old idea that didn't get much attention today is a water reservoir. State support from you guys for a water reservoir here would be priceless. It would provide flood safety, provide a water supply, and even possibly hydropower. That is a triple blessing for our county that would last for generations to come. These are tried and true solutions that will be here for our children's children. Let's work together and build them like we used to. Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair and members. Is this on? No? Okay, well, yes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Rebecca Fowler, and I'm here on behalf of Mental Health America of Greater Houston, as well as the Texas Coalition for Healthy Minds, a network of over 35 organizations focused on mental health and substance use recovery across Texas. Personally, I am here in person because I've lived in Houston for the past 15 years, and we are no stranger to disasters and trauma and recovery in that process. So I really wanted to share with you all what we have learned. My written testimony is quite extensive, and I encourage you all to reach out to me and our other organizations to really learn what are these best practices and what are organizations that are in place. We are already working with folks on the ground here in Kerrville to kind of help implement that practice, but I also wanted to share with you today that flooding is not just a physical disaster, it's also a psychological one, as we've already heard today. Kids, families, neighborhoods, this entire community has been impacted, and this will be a years-long recovery. We need to start thinking about how do we give supports now for kids who are afraid of the rain or water, who don't want to be separated from their families, and there are real ways that we can do that. And there's already kind of a very clear example that the committee understands it, this community understands it, and I'm very grateful for that. One thing that we did want to point out is that unfortunately disasters sharply increase suicidal ideation and substance use, and specifically here in Kerr County, the suicide rate was already nearly twice as high as the state average. And we already have very limited access for mental health services for youth. So we want to get in here and really amp up the supports that we can provide now that we know that they are needed more than ever. Schools have kind of formally been that front line for recovery in the past, and we would like to go in and support them as much as we can now. And for us, that really does come from looking at how the state can invest in emergency funding now. We saw after Uvalde, there was flexible state investments of about $5 million specifically for the Resiliency Center. We think that's a great model, but we would love to see that with additional flexibility so that communities here can turn to people that are already trusted, turn to the schools, turn to the churches to meet those communities' needs. We would also love to see, we've talked about T-Chat, we've talked about the LMHAs, we've talked about ESCs. Those programs exist, but a lot of schools that aren't connected is because they don't have the technical assistance or they don't have the actual internal infrastructure within the schools, whether that's a classroom or someone to kind of be with that student. So if there can be some sort of crisis mental health funding, either through the ESCs or to the districts specifically impacted, we would love to see that targeted mental health supports just so we can build out those structures in a new way. Thank you.
Good testimony. I did check. Kerrville ISD does participate in T-Chat, and they said it was awesome. So
good.
I didn't know if it made it here or not, but it's good. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, is this on? Yes. Hi, my name is Daniel Edstein. I'm a local resident. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak today. I also want to take this opportunity real quick just to thank all of our first responders and county officials and many volunteers that have poured their hearts and souls in this community. I mean, it's been a real blessing. My wife and 4 children reside here in West Kerr County, and I'm speaking today as a local resident on behalf of my parents who have a local business in Ingram, Texas. I'm here today just to bring light to the rebuilding of our communities and the struggles that we're facing right now. My parents own the Ingram Dam Center, which is located directly next to the Ingram High School, just across the street from the dam. The strip center is filled with other local businesses and residential apartments. This business was my parents' livelihood and their retirement. It's been extremely devastating to their lives because with their medical conditions, it's impossible for them to rebuild themselves. Thank God for all the volunteers and community help that we have received because without it, my parents, the business wouldn't have been salvageable. At least the building wouldn't have been salvageable itself. Their business and others at the Ingram Dam Center sustained 6.5 feet of water inside for hours. We had 4 residents in there, and they also survived and were water rescued, which was amazing, until the waters receded. So we had friends, family, random volunteers, and many churches and private organizations help us demo everything to the studs. So you go over there now, a lot of people know about the Ingram Dam. They've slid down the dam, when they're kids or their kids have done it. It's just kind of a central location in Ingram, and it's really sad to see where it's at right now. Things that I've learned a lot about, because I've never been in a disaster like this or anything close to it, that a lot of people don't know and I didn't know, is that once you take funds from FEMA, which they don't help businesses, but even individuals out there, once you take the funds from FEMA, in a catastrophic event, even like this, even if you're not in floodplain, they're going to require you to have flood insurance. And knowing the market quite well, being as a realtor, that's going to reduce families' home values, or really just price them out of the communities that they live in, because they can't afford flood insurance as well as mortgages and all that kind of stuff. So it's really going to hurt the people in the long run by them just taking the FEMA funds. So I've reached out to a lot of those communities and told them just because they're only giving them $12,000 to $18,000 for the damages in their houses. And I've told them just to go look out for grants, get as many grants as possible, because taking FEMA funds is just going to be detrimental to them in the long run. There's been very, very little relief for small businesses that are supposed to be the pillar of this community. FEMA doesn't offer recovery assistance for small businesses, even if we had residential units inside. And the SBA, just to be honest, has been kind of a joke. They told my parents that they give them an 8% loan, and they'd have to, if the only way they'd give them a 4% loan is if they either had bad credit or couldn't get approved somewhere else. So it's really detrimental to them, because that's their livelihood, and that's the way
You're
they.
going to have to kind of wrap.
Yep, I'll end it right now. So I just want to switch gears real quick. I'll end it right now. As a preventative, I really think the debris inside that wall of water that was coming through really had an effect, and it'd be great if we could figure out what effect that had and put a plan together in place in order to maybe clean out the rivers and things like that before these happen and all that debris comes down. So.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
My name is Debbie Strain. I am from San Antonio and was involved in the Sandy Creek relief efforts from pretty close to the beginning. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to speak before all of you today. I come before you not only as a Texan and constituent of Senator Menendez, but as someone who witnessed firsthand the heartbreaking failures in Sandy Creek after the July 5th flood. I'm a volunteer, and like many others, friends, neighbors, and strangers from across the state, we showed up because help was needed. By the time government entities were seen on the scene, we had already recovered bodies, coordinated supply chains, brought in heavy equipment, served hot meals, provided medical care, and tried, often unsuccessfully, to get help across a broken bridge. Volunteers were threatened with arrest for attempting to deliver supplies to areas that needed them. On July 14th, TDEM and others opened a volunteer resource center, which I know was discussed at the previous hearing. But by then, much of the critical early response had already been led by the everyday people on the ground. Communication from TDEM and Travis County OEM was inconsistent, unclear, and often contradictory. Policies changed multiple times a day. Volunteers didn't know if they could take their tools from the VRC on the bus to the sites. It changed 4 times in one day, the policy on that. The confusion delayed help and discouraged volunteers from coming out to provide the assistance that was so desperately needed in the area. TDEM arrived in the Sandy Creek area on July 10th, was the first time I can recall hearing that they were there. They left by July 25th. Is that enough time to manage a disaster? Is it even enough to start? Through it all, help did not come from official channels. It came from volunteers, contractors, nurses, teachers, business owners, off-duty responders, parents. Regular working class Texans and grassroots organizations stepped in when the system failed. Research consistently shows that the disaster response efforts are often hindered by fears of disorder or lack of control. However, it is frequently the unaffiliated volunteers, those who are undeterred by obstacles and driven purely by the urgency of need, who deliver the most timely and effective aid on the ground. Sandy Creek deserved better. They still do. And we're asking you to ensure that no other community is left to navigate a disaster alone. We need action. Specifically, mandate minimum staffing and rapid activation timelines for county emergency operations centers during declared disasters, so that no gaps like the ones we saw from July 5th to July 10th happen again. Codify communication protocols that require clear, centralized, and accessible public updates during disaster response, especially because so many of these areas do not have good cell phone coverage.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Please proceed. Just state your name, please.
Do you want me to go first?
Oh,
We're swapping.
okay.
I am speaking on behalf of a couple of
Ma'am.
flood. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Under House rules,
Oh.
you can only testify on behalf of what you put on your witness affirmation form, and we have you as testifying just on behalf of yourself.
Okay.
Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Please proceed. Just state your name, and you got 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Or 2 minutes.
My name is Courtney Calhoun. I was born and raised in Hunt, Texas. I was born at the Sid Peterson Hospital in Kerrville, Texas, and I simultaneously grew up in Hunt and Kerrville. Weeks prior to the flood, I was privately living with my God family in Bumblebee Hills. I did not announce this to the public. I came back kind of in private. They lost mostly everything in their home, and I lost most of my personal items that were there. On 8 p.m. of the 3rd, I decided to leave town to go to Travis County for the 4th of July. I awoke late in the morning to the news of what had happened to my hometown, immediately took action, started purchasing materials, loaded up a truck, drove down with the anticipation to drive down to Kerrville. The second I stepped foot in my truck, I received flood flash warnings for Travis County. I waited with my mother near my front door for nearly 13 hours in terror, watching my hometown be destroyed, annihilated, unable to go there. Without the proper notification that I could leave, I took a risk and I left her and my pets. I rushed down to Kerr County. I came to my God family's side, delivered my materials, immediately went boots on the ground for search and rescue. On the 5th, I was doing search and rescue at Casa Bonita, and based off of the information from someone who testified earlier, I can without a doubt say that we recovered some of her family members. We were amongst the first to come by. After the wave came from help looking for survivors, we were amongst the first to come by to start looking for recovery that were not alive anymore. I did this for several days. On the 7th, I decided to make a mass resource list for Hunt to Kerr County, and upon this, the chief of the Hunt Volunteer Fire Department gave me a badge and a vest and asked me to also help with the first victim needs intake list and volunteer sheet. Then I went back to search and rescue. Every day I did search and rescue. Over the next few days, Governor Abbott came through Hunt. I just happened to be there at that time where I met Mr. Friedel and a couple other people, and I spoke on behalf of my county, speaking about the lack of communication and leadership and volunteer turnaway that was happening if you weren't there for search and rescue. My godmother was amongst, and so were these kind people amongst the others that were in Bumblebee Hills that did not receive aid for a couple of days because they were not involved in the missing. They were forced to sit there and watch mold go up their walls. After this, I was removed from Hunt, Texas by the Chief Volunteer Fire Department, being told that I was taking sight away from the mass disruption of what was going on in my town and that I was there for other reasons. I asked for a clear explanation as why I was being escorted out of my town, and I was never given one. I went into hiding, but I came out to Kerrville and I decided to continue my search and rescue.
Thank you for your testimony.